Okay, now it's time to talk about wiring. So if you got the manual trans in, we've got the flywheel in, we've got everything bolted up. The next thing I want to do before I put the cross member in, so the transmission can kind of hang down and I have more room, is just to do the wiring. So there's two things we have to wire up. One is the speedometer, the speed sensor, and the other one is the backup lights. So on the side of the manual transmission, we'll go underneath the car and take a look at that. There's two connectors. This is one. This is the this was actually about $30, which I just bit the bullet and bought it. This is the off an 04 Mustang. There's two different styles I've seen. This one is this style. It's got the two pins with the it kind of clips over it. And there's another one I've seen that's like a round barrel that slips over two threaded studs. That one seems to be a little bit more common and it's cheaper, but unfortunately I got the more expensive one, so that's for the backup lights. This is a Dorman part number 645-213. This is the one for the speed sensor. So what we have to do is we have to, I was just watching Pierre's videos. He has the videos 1 through, I think it's like 17 or something. So in his SWAT video number 6, he goes over the transmission. So his car is an 03. This is a 2010. And he also has another video on 05 plus cars having to do one more wiring fix up at the ECU. And I think the reason is what we're about to go over. This rear sensor is the vehicle speed sensor for the speedometer. And if you look, it has two pins, but there's two blades on the top. This one right here underneath this little bracket, this is, I think, the sensor Pierre's talking about, where it's missing on the older cars. So this is a 2010, like I said, so it has this. The older vehicles don't. So I think this is what the ECU is looking for, that the workaround up at the ECU end is getting around. So we're going to do that later. So we're going to look for this connector on the, and they look very similar actually. You can see that these ones are wider and they're pointing to the side. These two ears are narrower and they're pointing up. So we're looking for this guy, and then this is your reverse park neutral. So you can see here on the side it says neutral, and there's a line, and there's a line on that yellowish white. So I'm going to pull on this. It's changed gears, and you can see that the little straight edge is no longer on the neutral. So I think that's low gear, like first gear, whereas all the way back is park, and then that's reverse. One click up would be neutral, and neutrals are aligned. Drive, and there should be second gear, and then first gear. So what I need to do is, when we're in reverse, which would be one click all the way back, we have to find on the connector that slides into this guy, underneath the car, there's two pins that we have to get. So the first thing we're going to do is just focus on the speed sensor. That's easy. All we do is we cut the connector off the car harness and we solder on this connector, and that's all that is. Very easy. That's what we're going to try and find and try and do. So here it is here. Pretty straightforward, just two wires, and it shouldn't matter which one goes to which. They're both white, so either wire can go to either wire, I think. So all we're going to do is cut the connector off the car harness and solder this guy in, and then we're going to find which pins we need to tap into to get our reverse lights. So let's try and work on that a little bit more. Alright, we're under the car. As Pierre said in his video, the older cars, this harness comes out with the trans. The newer cars like this one, this one stays with the vehicle. So you can see up there, that green one is for the upstream O2 sensor on the passenger side, and then this length is supposed to jump over the hump to the other side, and now you've got your green, your other green for the driver's side upstream sensor. The blue connectors are for your downstream. So there's one, and then there's another one over here. So there it is there. This guy we're not going to use because that plugged into the right behind the fill tube, the fill dipstick on the automatic. So I'm not even going to bother with that. And so then that leaves this guy. This is the one that we got to find the 2 pins for the reverse lights. But then there's these 2. So these are the 2 we got to figure out which one is which. And if you remember, we said it's the one that's got the narrower of the 2 blade spades on it. So if we look right in here, you can tell that the one on my left hand. And that's another thing. Let's just verify that one more time. So I've got the spade blades thingies, the alignment keys, I guess we'll call them, facing up. The one on the left is the one we need because it's skinnier. It's got the skinnier, and those ones are wider. But also, the skinny one runs up and down. See how the red. Is it one on top of each other on the left, or is it on the right? They're next to each other. Up, down, left, right kind of a thing. So let's just verify on the transmission again before we cut this off that the connectors pins are run up, down with the alignment key blades, and the other one, the wider one, would be more of a left-right configuration. So let's go back to the trans. So if we look, yes. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see that, but you can see, yeah, that the skinny ones are going. So here's the direction of the key, up, down, and the pins are up, down. Whereas the front one, which is the one we don't want, you're really not going to be able to see that because my camera lens is on the right side. But this one's got the wider spades, and it's left, right. So it is that one. Okay, so let's cut that one off and solder in our sensor here. So let me do that. I don't think you need to see me solder it, but we're going to do that with the shrink wrap and the heat gun. So I'll get that one done. All right. So we've got the vehicle speed sensor, the speedometer one, soldered in. So that's done. So now we have 6 more wires that we need to, 4 more wires, 6 wires total, 4 more wires to worry about. And those are going to be, the remaining 4 are going to be on this. This is the transmission range selector. So if you look, you can see that there are 2 on the upper row and 1 on the bottom row that are unused. So we're gonna just flip it like this. So that means that on the bottom right, those 2 are unused now, right? Yeah. And if you look closer, you can see that there are numbers on it. You can't see, but well, yeah, you can see. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 is what that says. See, 12 is right there, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. So 10 and 12, we have to jump together. So 10 and 12 is going to be this one, 11, 10, and then so that one, you know. So 10 and 12 would be for either, if you're going to run a clutch switch, a safety switch, you would basically take this one, this corner one, and then skip one and go to that guy. So that's 12, 11, 10. And you'd clip them from here, and then you could run 2 wires up to your clutch pedal, to the clutch safety switch, or you can do what I'm going to do. And this is the less safe of the options, but I've never had a vehicle with a clutch safety switch, and I'm used to driving them without it. Plus, I like starting the car with the clutch out. You're not stressing the throw-out bearing and all that stuff when trying to start the car. So all I'm going to do is for pins 10 and 12, I'm just going to cut the wires maybe about 1 inch up and then solder them together on the harness side. So that'll be my clutch safety switch or safety switch. But if you're going to do that, remember that the key will start the engine regardless. So, you know, be careful with that. Just keep that in mind. But that's okay because that's what I've always done. So I'm gonna get that done. Then the only remaining thing is the reverse lights, which we'll talk about in a second. Okay, so what I've done here is the pins 10 and 12 I trimmed. And all I did is up in the harness side, I just twisted them together, soldered them, and then put 2 pieces of shrink wrap on up over it. So now our clutch switch has been, I guess we'll say, bypassed, and the car will start. The only remaining 2 wires we need, remember how I said there were 6, so we've got 2 here, 2 right there, and then the remaining 2 are on this connector as well. So we'll kind of tuck these to the side, and then if you look, there's only 2 more wires on the bottom row, and those are the ones we need. There we go. So 10 and 12, so 12 would be the far right one, 11, 10, so 10 and 12 we did, but now we need 9 and 11, so that would just be the only other 2, because remember the 2, 7, 8 we don't use, so 9 and 11 are the other 2 we need. And number 9 is power in, and number 11 is to the reverse lights. So, and then what I'm going to do is unbolt the switch from the automatic and plug this in and zip tie it up there. And then the other 2 wires are these 2. These 2, all we did, if you remember, is snip off the automatic transmission connector and then connect this one in. And it didn't matter which one we connected it to, you know, which wire went to which. So that's the wiring that you need to do. And what I'm going to do now is, since it comes down the passenger side, what I've got now is I don't have the cross member in, so what I've got is just the jack, and I've got a lot of room now. The transmission is low. It's low down. It's like just almost hanging off the motor mount, so I'm just supporting it barely with this, and I'm going to loop the wires up over it and then get everything connected and kind of do a little bit of secure with zip ties, and then we're gonna put the cross member in. All right, I've got the transmission in. It's all in there. Cross member's back in, transmission mounts in. I lined up these holes. These are the 2 transmission cross member bolts. Those are in. I can show you what I kind of did here. So there's the wiring loom for the transmission right here. You can see it goes, it's not caught or pinched, it's low enough, so we're got clearance. But here's the upstream for the passenger side, and then the downstream for the passenger side's right there, and then that's not going to be used. We got the cross member in. See how we had to bring these holes, towards the back of the car? You can see that circle is where the automatic mounted, right there. But that's right now where our manual is mounted. This is the same transmission mount as the automatic from the Crown Vic. This is not a Mustang trans mount. This is the Crown Vic automatic trans mount. Same bolts as out of the automatic holding it in. You can see that everything clears. That's the trans mount, and then this is the cross member. The only other thing, so that little nub I was telling you about, that clears. The only other modification I had to make was right here. This I had to cut about 1/4 inch off. Remember when we cut the cross member, I just kind of lined up the blade with the end of the holes. Well, I should have taken a little bit farther, farther back, farther away from the transmission, So now there's clearance. You can see there's about 1/8 inch clearance, which is good. Wiring, we've got the speed sensor hooked up, and then this stupid thing, this is the reverse. like I was saying, but this $30 connector I paid for wasn't the right one, so I think I can get it to work. I'm working on that now. I think it's too long, and I just need to trim it a little bit and open up the connectors so they'll slide over those pins, and I think I'll get it to snap in. There's the other side, driver's side upstream O2 sensor. I'm just going to zip tie that. I'm going to zip tie that up to here, that little ear, and then this one's not going to be used. I'll just zip tie that there, and then we're going to plug in our transmission range selector when we get the almost when it's time to do it. This is the rear O2, so it's in. This is a that cross member bolts are in as well. Two of them, one there and one there. You can see them. So then I clipped in the e-brake cable again. It just clips back in. So the next thing that we need to do is clutch cable, the pedals, and then I gotta finish putting the rear end back in. But the one thing we gotta do first is the drive shaft. This is so from the rear you can tell that everything clears nicely. Up here we had to clear, remember how we had to cut that out in this that part of the floor of the car. So this output shaft, I put a new seal in, by the way, but this is in 31 spline, and the automatic is a 28 spline. So we had to get a new yoke, and I have that. So we have to change. I'm going to change the U joints front and back, but the front U joint needs a conversion U joint, and we'll go over that when we do the transmission. The drive shaft U joint change. But as far as like the transmission swap, it's done. It's swapped. So let me show you from inside the car. So here it is. I'm just gonna climb in the car here and we'll show you. So this is I think this is a stock Mustang shift handle. So that's neutral. So first gear, I mean, we're pretty close to the dash. I think I might get another shift handle, but just to get it on the road, this one will work. So this will be third gear, and we're pretty close there. So your hands you're gonna punch the dashboard. So I think I'm gonna have to come up with something else, but for right now it should be fine. I think I might get a Hurst or something, or maybe even just weld, cut this and weld a piece of pipe in there or something just to space this back a little bit longer. That would work too. So maybe I'll do that, but I just wanted to show you what it looks like inside the car. For some reason, I know Pierre did his video, and he said an inch back from this little tab is where the hole should be, but I don't know if my body is farther back or something on this frame, but mine, I took a screwdriver and I just tapped the sheet metal because it was rubbing the shifter here. So I just kind of bent that down so we got clearance. And this hole's a little bit too far back, but that's okay. The width is good. Here's the passenger side. Nice clearance all the way around. So that's it for today, I think. I think next, like I said, is the either the rear end I'll put back in, or I'm gonna do the pedals. I guess I'll come up with a plan tonight, and maybe tomorrow I'll keep working on it. So I'm happy with it. The swap. I think all the hard stuff is now done. Got the newer transmission in it, so that's good. When we gonna fill oil through here. That's the easier part to do, but we'll go over that later. So thanks. Okay, just to make things easier, I think I was being a little bit confusing when I was trying to explain how to do the transmission wiring for the 5-speed swap on the Crown Vic when I was actually doing it underneath the car. So to avoid any confusion, to make things simpler and easier, I've made this cheat sheet. And we can kind of go over it right now. So on the first page, I've just got the title 05 through 11 Ford Panther transmission wiring. Ignore this red box. This picture I had to get off the internet from a separate discussion that does not relate to this. Plus, we don't even use this wire anyway. I've grayed out the wire colors because the connector, this is from an older car, so the wire colors have changed, but the pins have not. And I also kind of color coded it for what we're going to talk about in a few minutes here. So before we get started, I just kind of want to go over some preliminary notes. There are a total of 6 wires you need to worry about on a transmission, 3 pair of them. On the older cars, the pre-05 cars, the transmission wiring harness can be removed with the transmission, so you could work on it outside the vehicle. But on the newer ones, like the one we worked on, it doesn't. It actually stays, the harness stays with the vehicle, so you have to work on it underneath the car. It's a little bit harder to do that, but it's really no big deal. So, and the last note I want to make is that when you're all done with the wiring, you want to take the sensor off of the automatic transmission. There's some bolts that hold it onto the side of the transmission, and you want to take that off, and then you want to put it in neutral. There's like a white barrel with a line, and then there's another line on the black housing, and you align the 2 lines, and then it's in neutral. Let's talk about these 3 pairs of wires. The first pair doesn't use this connector, this picture. It's for your speedometer, and it's a separate connector, and I actually kept it. Here it is. I actually saved it in my glove box. Kind of a good thing I did. But basically what you do is you want to find this connector on the vehicle harness and snip it off like I've done. And the way you find that is it is the rearmost sensor on the driver's side of the automatic transmission. There are actually 2 of these connectors that look pretty similar, but they are different. So you just want to make sure that you get this connector, and you don't want to snip the other one off because it won't work properly. You do need to worry about that connector in a later wiring video that we're going to talk about. But just for the transmission portion, look for this connector, you snip it off, and then you would solder on the pigtail that you bought for the Mustang, and that's Dorman part number 645-213. That's the Mustang pigtail for your speed sensor. And it doesn't matter which wire you wire to it. You just want to wire it to the car harness. So that's your speed sensor. The next is we need the other page, so I'll kind of get these wired lined up for you. I have highlighted in yellow the 2 pins, so you need pins number 10 and 12. Now, you can either use the numbers on this sheet. You can see that we have pins 1 through 6 on the top row and 7 through 12 on the bottom row, and that's looking into the connector. Pretend that you're the DTR sensor and you're looking at the harness. Now, if you flip the connector over, you actually have it in your hands. When you flip it over, you'll see the numbers on it. So that makes it a lot easier, and you really don't even need this sheet. You just need to know that you need pins 10 and 12. So, so for pins 10 and 12, that's your neutral safety switch. And what you do is you basically just cut, just like I've done here. You kind of cut the wire off of this big connector about 1 inch away from it, and then you would solder your neutral safety switch, if you choose to run one, to those 2 wires that go up into the harness, and then you would run those 2 wires to the clutch and solder those to a switch if you choose to run a clutch safety switch. Or you can do what I did. The easier of them is you would just basically connect those 2 together full time, and that would act as your safety switch being bypassed, and everything will work fine. Just note, if you do that, whenever you turn the key to crank, you know, whenever you, and I'll do it right now. I got the car in gear. It's going to lurch. You know, it's trying to fight the e-brake. So it will try and start no matter what. If the engine's running, if you get the clutch up, if you get the car in gear, just remember that if you hit that key to crank, it's going to crank. So pins 10 and 12 are your safety switch. That's the second pair, and the third pair is the reverse lights, and that's pins 9 and 11. All you have to do is you have to wire those to your reverse light pigtail. Now there's 2 different styles. The cheaper and probably more common, it looks like a round hockey puck with 2 holes in it, and that basically you press that onto the transmission, and there's 2 threaded studs on your reverse switch. Or the one that I had is it's a little bit fancier. It's like a 2-pin connector that hooks onto it, and that one is expensive. But what I also was able to find is that it's the same connector off of a T56, a Tremec T56, and that's the 6-speed that's still in production, and that's in like Mustangs, Camaros, Corvettes, and Challengers. So if you can just kind of find that part number, and all you would do is you would cut the wires off of this from pins 9 and 11, and you would solder your reverse light pigtail to the car harness side. And it doesn't matter which wire goes to where on both the reverse lights, and it doesn't matter which pin goes to which, like I told you, on this one, and then on the on the neutral switch, that one it doesn't matter either. They all kind of act as switches. So hopefully that kind of makes things easier. And those are the 6 wires you need to pay attention to. And comment, like, share, BP Builds, and that's how you do the wiring on a 05 Plus Crown Vic. And I will maybe, in case we can do it this way, I'll just kind of do an overhead view of both pages, and you can read them. Pause the video and read them. All right, and stay tuned for more.